A, B, C, D, E, F, G.
Once you give a little ground on copyright law, you're actually giving a lot. Tweaks to copyright law would potentially just effectively be a Trojan horse into a much greater problem, whereby once the ground is given, you can never get it back. What they want is the top grade fuel, and they want it all. This is their business model.
Artists, journalists, musicians and other creatives are up in arms about a Productivity Commission report. It sounds pretty dry, but it's very important for the future of the arts and of journalism in Australia. I'm joined by the Australian's media editor, James Madden, to work it all out. James, it sounds pretty dry, but this is actually about the things that make life worth living, isn't it? Art and music.
Absolutely. And I suppose hidden beneath the dry language in the report, as you say, Claire, the devil is in the detail with this report. Now, it's an interim report, and these are just ideas being put forward by the Productivity Commission. But at its heart, the idea being put out there is that big tech, AI companies, should have the right to access, potentially, the copyright of a raft of creative professions, including journalism, music, art, poetry, books.
It's something that the tech titans are very keen on. Scott Farquhar spoke to the National Press Club the other day, one of the co-founders of Atlassian.
Now, the first barrier, and this may seem really esoteric, but it's actually really important, is we need to make changes to our copyright laws. Australia's copyright laws are out of sync with the rest of the world. We're in a perverse situation where copyright holders don't see a single dollar of extra money as a result of our laws, but we miss out on the economic upside of hosting and training models in Australia. So my first ask today of government is for the Attorney-General to urgently amend our Copyright Act to look at fair use and text and data mining exceptions.
And this was his big ask, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm. It was, and when you think about it, if you put yourself in the shoes of the big tech companies, having access to this kind of material, this is the fuel that powers their machines. And I suppose what they want is the top grade fuel, and they want it all. This is their business model, and they don't want to pay for it. It's as simple as that. And you would have seen the outcry this morning from a raft of industry leaders making the point that in what other industry is it okay to steal others' content and monetize it for your own good?
Yeah, so on one side we have big tech companies that are training AI models right now, models like ChatGPT and Gemini. On the other side, we have organisations like News Corp Australia, which owns The Australian, media companies, Creative Australia and the government agencies that represent artists and all sorts of arts companies. What basically do those arts and media companies want?
They want the right for the content creators, if you want to use that term, that blanket term across the professions, they want the right for the content creators to retain the copyright to their own work.
Yeah. They basically want the copyright law as it exists not to change, right? They're happy with the status quo.
That's correct. And, of course, one of the concerns too, I think from Creative Australia and APRA and others, has been the concern that is this a push by AI to retrospectively justify the use of other people's content for their own profit? The Industry Minister, Tim Ayres, came out this morning in response to the Productivity Commission report and said the Australian government has no plans to change the copyright law. And the Coalition's spokesman, Julian Lisa, said a similar thing too. What you do have to remember, though, is these IA companies are powerful lobbyists and have the means and the wealth to exert an enormous amount of pressure on the Australian government and governments around the world for that matter. But at this stage, certainly perhaps in response to the reaction from various professions and industry leaders this morning, the government has indicated that there will be no change to the copyright law for now.
I decided to have a little look at what's happening now, so under the current regime, and testing whether what the AI companies want would actually work. So I gave it a try with ChatGPT. I asked it to analyse the lyrics of the Australian singer The Kid Laroi, and I'll play for you a little bit of what it said.
The Kid Laroi's lyrics explore themes that resonate deeply with his audience, particularly focusing on love, heartbreak, fame, and personal growth. Here's an analysis of these major themes.
So you get the picture. It blathers on for a long time about that. In that classic sort of AI writing that we've become used to, way too many words, doesn't actually tell you anything. It's kind of the equivalent of eating, white bread. But then I had a look at its sources, and the sources that it's using to do that analysis for me are actually also powered by AI. So it's scraped information from every website it can find where either a real person, a journalist, has done an analysis of the Kid Leroy's lyrics, or maybe an AI tool has done that analysis. So, but then I said to it, can you write a song in the style of the Kid Leroy? And I suggested maybe it could be something about something very Australian, Murray River red gums. So here's what it said about that.
Here's a song inspired by the Kid Leroy's style, focusing on the majestic Murray River red gums with that mix of raw emotion, vivid imagery, and youthful reflection. Down by the river, where the red gums grow, roots run deep, but the water's running low. Leaves whisper stories that the old winds know, trying to find a place where my heart can go.
Okay, it goes on and on and on like that. Then it said to me, do you want me to help you make it sound like a full song with melody ideas and production tips? I said, sure. So then it's suggesting chord progressions. Then it's suggesting the full orchestration, how I can make it sound really emotional. Then it suggests, would it like me to record a humming track for me so I can hum along with it? So I could quite easily then use ChatGPT to create a song in the style of the Kid Leroy, which is just shamelessly taken his ideas and style. I could release it without leaving my desk. I'm not saying anyone would listen to it. But so that's the current situation. What do you think about that? Is ChatGPT stealing from the Kid Leroy here?
Well, it's a really good example, actually, notwithstanding the fact that I doubt the Kid Leroy will ever sing about Red Gum Murray on the Murray. However, one of the points that arose from the PC report was that once you give a little ground on copyright law, you're actually giving a lot in this regard, because it is virtually impossible to detect theft of copyright under AI because of the various layers that material goes through. So, for example, the Kid Leroy could never actually pursue that case, presumably, because it's just so hard to detect where this theft has come from. How would it stand up in the court of law? So that has been one of the arguments about the so-called exemption that's been floated by the PC, in that tweaks to copyright law would potentially just effectively be a Trojan horse into a much greater problem, whereby once the ground is given, you can never get it back.
Has the horse already bolted here? Clearly, ChatGPT knows a lot about the Kid Leroy already. Is it too late to be making any changes?
No, I don't think it's too late. I think the Australian copyright law is sound as it currently sits, and it is considered gold standard the world over, because it does afford significant protections for creatives. I don't think it's too late, but just as the argument was put forward in the PC's report that perhaps copyright law hasn't kept pace with the rise of AI technology, I think the flip side is also true, in that creative professions need to try and keep a step ahead of the rise of AI and fiercely defend the copyright law for what it does for them at present.
Yeah, the Productivity Commission's job is obviously to improve the productivity of the Australian economy. Its job is not to be worried about whether your kids or my kids have a future if they want to be an author or they want to create music. Who is that on? Whose responsibility is it to protect those creative industries?
You're right, the PC's doing its job effectively, and I think they cited a number in that report saying potentially loosening copyright laws could open up $116 billion of investment in the Australian economy, or I think that was the number. When you strip it all back, do we want to live in a world where the creative professions are marginalised to the point where there is no incentive to pursue that craft? I don't.